Well, good day, everyone. If you've been patient enough to get through the first two movies on this disc, we're now going to expose you to the third movie. And this one is of a trip that I did with a good friend and ex-neighbor here in Boulder, wherein we went up to what's called the Raw War Wilderness area in Colorado on a fly fishing trip. This was quite an adventure for me because it was shortly after we had moved to Colorado, and this tenderfoot from the Big Apple didn't know too much about fly fishing or too much about mountain life. But Cal Jassmann, who was my ex-neighbor, and asked me to join him on this venture, I will proceed to explain to you different things. Now, we're in a field right now, and we're looking for some of Cal's horses. Cal had about 4 or 5 or 6 horses, and I think those are some of them out there in that field. We're now up at this place called Glendevey Lodge. That's some of the panoramic scenes that surrounded this area. I'll probably be talking through most of this movie because there are a lot of different characters involved. Now, there's my good friend Cal Jassmann, and he's heading across the field to hopefully induce one of his horses, an Arabian horse, to come and take the feed that he's carrying in his right hand and join him. Oh, and he got him. There he is, and Cal's bringing him back up, and this is the horse that he's going to be using while we go on our fly fishing journey. Now, the big issue was, how do you find a horse big enough to carry this overweight old man? And here is what they came up with. And he was a lovely horse. He endured me for the better part of 8 or 9 or 10 days, and I dubbed him Charlie. Now, there's an interesting crowd of people here. There you see Cal on the left, and that chap to the right, he was from New York, an avid fly fisherman. He was in advertising, and he worked for Merrill Lynch, or at least he did at that time. Cal's good friend, Garth Peterson, was the one that actually owned this Glendevey Lodge. Those early images that you saw, that was around the lodge. Garth Peterson, there you see Garth talking to Cal. He's the one in the pink and blue shirt combination. He's talking to Cal. They've been friends for many, many years. Cal is a retired United Airlines captain, and at the time that we did this trip, Garth was still flying for United Airlines. He was no longer flying the right-hand seat for Cal. He was now a captain flying 747s primarily from San Francisco to the Far East, to Tokyo and Hong Kong and places like that. He has since retired, but bear in mind, this movie that you're seeing right now, the images were taken, 14, 15 years ago. And there again is Cal and Garth. I always thought Garth had a likeness to the Marlboro Man. He was a real nice guy. And he had bought this lodge, and one of the reasons Cal had me up there was to talk to Garth about long-range financial planning. Here are some of the scenes, again in the surrounding area. And Garth and I had an opportunity to do a little bit of chatting. That's Garth and Big Fat Ed to the right. And we did chat about, some of his long-range plans and how he would cope with dealing with this lodge that he had acquired. He is a pretty unique individual. He was about the only person the U.S. Forest Service would permit to operate in this raw war wilderness. There are very, very strict restraints on what people could do in designated wilderness areas. And Garth had done a good job, and he was the only one that was approved to enter this wilderness. with people. And here we are in front of our food tent where we had our meals. That's the group that was with us. There's Cal in the center. We had those two couples to the right. I'll describe a little bit more about them. The redhead to the right of Cal, she was a premier ballerina for the American Ballet Company in New York, and that's her husband to the left. And of course, that's Cal leaning over and talking to me. Well, here you see what poor old Charlie had to put up with for 10 days. I'm sure he had to have a long siege of rest and recuperation after carrying me around. We were up at pretty good altitudes on this trip. We weren't above the tree line, but we were in the 10,000 to 11,000 foot range. In the latitudes of Colorado, when you get up above 11,000 feet, you're pretty much above the tree line. And the settings were just, incredible. It was quite an experience, as I say, for this tenderfoot from the Big Apple. And there you see Cal checking out his fishing gear. Cal used a reel. He wasn't a fly fisherman. These two couples that were with us, they were avid fly fishing people. And they just lived and breathed it. And there you see a pond or a stream, and you see that fly fisherman doing what he obviously loves to do the most, is fly fish. And it is truly an art form. I practice it. I could get the fly out there pretty well. I managed to master that, but there are so many other aspects that you have to master. And after this experience, I decided I'm a little over age and grade to learn or to become an avid fly fisherman. There you see that chap, one of our group. He's got his waders on and he's out there and he's probably stringing another fly and getting ready to cast it out. We always had to tether the horses. We had to climb up from the lodge to this base camp that was actually at 10,000 feet. And as we went out every day and we found streams or ponds in which to fish, we had to tether the horses. Now here we are on the trail. That's the ballerina right in front of me when I took this picture, and that other nice lady. That other couple, they were from Walnut Creek, California, and they were, as I said before, very, very avid fishermen. This was sort of the terrain around us. You always had to keep an eye out. We encountered a number of moose. Fortunately, we didn't encounter any mountain lions, but one has to be cautious when they're up in a wilderness area because the wildlife are there, and you have to be prepared for that. Here's a scene where we've got some of the group. We're still on the trail. We're probably looking for a beaver pond to do some more fly fishing. There's Garth on his horse. Again, I will mention the likeness to the Marlboro Man, although Garth wasn't a smoker. And now we come up to an interesting scene. There are two areas in Colorado where they have sand dunes. This happens to be one. We're looking down at these sand dunes. The other big sand dunes are now a national park, and that's down in San Luis Valley, Colorado. Interesting how those sand dunes occur. Here again, we're in part of the terrain. It was maneuverable, well, with Garth's good guidance. We obviously were following trails, so it wasn't too difficult. Here Cal's holding my horse, poor old Charlie, while I'm taking the picture. And we're, getting ready to head off to the next site to permit these two couples who were avid fly fishermen. Well, actually, the ballerina wasn't a fly fishing person, but her husband was. He was a very unusual individual. I probably won't dwell on that, but he did cause a somewhat of a minor major crisis while we were on this trip because he went off by himself and didn't show up when he was supposed to, and there was quite a bit of concern, and Cal and Garth both had a lot of responsibility for people that they were guiding on this trip. There again, we're probably up at about 10,005 now, and we're looking to the west at a valley before us, and probably over that next mountain range of Steamboat Springs. Some of these ponds were very, very beautiful. Some of them were beaver ponds, some of them were just natural ponds that the good Lord created. And here we're starting to pack up. Cal was actually the wrangler on this trip, and he had a mule, and the mules were carrying our gear, you know, our lunches and all that sort of stuff. Yes, that's a little snow patch that you see up there, and this, I think we were up there in August, so we're up high enough that the snow could still survive. Here's a picture of my dear friend Cal Jassmann. It looks like he's been caught with his fingers in the cookie jar, but actually he's loading in some of the brown trout that he caught, and he's very pleased about that. Now, these last two scenes are of our group. All transgressions are forgiven. Everybody's having a beer, and we're about to head back to our mountain camp. And this was the conclusion of our trip. It was a bunch of fun. I wish I were young again and I could do it all over, and perhaps have enough time to learn how to fly fish. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I say, gonna do again.